So the question came in today or the other day on Bombardier Keeping Alive Facebook page. Should you put in an O-ring? Or do you have to make a groove for the grease or whatnot? And Dad is going to explain this to everybody here.
Okay, usually what I do with a bushing, there's a groove in the center for the grease, and there's 2 holes, eh? What I usually do is drill at least a 1/8 hole right through twice in the center.
Okay.
So you're close to the grease nipple.
Yep.
Put the holes in there because there's a groove in the center for the grease. Now it doesn't make any difference if the bushing turns on here or if the bushing turns on the axle.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you boys what the secret to it is.
Okay.
These grease nipples, grease them.
That's the secret right there.
That's the whole problem right there.
Okay, so
nobody wants to grease them.
So what's the cost of a tube of grease? About $20?
No, $8 to $12, but use a good quality grease.
Okay, so
Just a minute, I'm looking for a rag.
okay.
Might as well use this one. Now, you boys can see the O-ring here. See the O-ring? It's just a small little O-ring.
Yeah.
And then...
Now what size is that? Is that a standard size you can buy or?
you can buy, take it off and size it. Or buy a kit.
Okay.
And then you got O-rings in case you need them somewhere else.
Okay.
Now, this goes on first. Then you slide the axle on.
Okay.
So as you can see, that O-ring is really doing nothing.
Okay.
So it's up to you if you want to put them in. Go ahead.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, once you put this axle on, you tighten the nut. Don't get over torquing either. Put the nut on, castle nut and a lock washer, and then try it like this after you grease it, and you won't have any trouble. But at least once a month, grease them.
That's with regular use once a month. Grease them.
Yeah, when you're working it.
Okay.
And
So
then especially in the spring, after you've been running through the water and everything else, grease it until the grease comes out. And then when you're greasing the wheel bearings, if you feel pressure on the grease gun, stop, because you'll blow the seal out.
okay.
Most of the seals have a hole in them, providing you pump slowly like this.
Okay.
But if you just get going and pump 200, you'll push the seal out.
Okay. So now Dad's talking about regular wear and tear. Dad built Winter Road, used the thing just about every single day. So that's where you're going to be once a week or once every 2 weeks, you pumping grease in here. Grease nipples are cheap. Install them. Okay. But the other thing is, guys, is you got to realize we got 2 types of customers. Ones that are like taking them out for pleasure cruises and then parking them. The other guys are using commercial fishing or winter roads. And so the guys, that second category, the guys are using machines all the time. When he's talking about springtime, you're typically parking your machine.
Water on the ice. Water on the ice before they quit.
Yeah.
And then they take it and put it out in the yard or under a tree. They should all be under a roof.
Yeah.
Or a tarp this high.
Yeah.
And don't use lock nuts.
Okay.
Use castle nuts. There's a hole in each one of these to put a cotter pin in, so it can't turn out.
Okay.
See
That's the castle nut that
this
he's
is
talking about?
castle nut. I'm going to show the boys. And same thing with your axles. They're castle nuts.
Yeah.
This one here has been running. It should be thrown away. It's wrecked. Eh?
So
anyway, these nuts here, you can't. I just put these on to protect the threads.
yeah.
Clean the threads and put the proper castle nut in. And before you even put this on, run a 1/8 bit through there to make sure there's not a broken chunk of cotter pin, because then you can't get the cotter pin in.
So now the difference in price here is probably like a cent or two,
No, it's
or maybe a dollar.
10 cents.
10 cents. Okay, so that's the correct one. That's the incorrect one. Now you can grab one of these from the junk drawer and throw them on, and it'll work. But this is the correct one
I'm going to explain to you again.
for 10 cents more.
This is a lock nut.
Yeah.
But sometimes the bolt doesn't go far enough to lock, because that's the lock right there, that little wee bit on the edge.
Okay.
And they're only a one-use thing and throw away.
Okay.
They make good lock nuts,
Yeah.
but they're hard to get and they're expensive.
Okay. So it's using the right parts for your Bombardier, guys. I'm sure whatever you've been using, it's working fine. You're not complaining, but Dad likes to do.
You can do whatever you want, as far as
he
I'm
wants to make sure this is getting thrown out. We're just keeping that for now. But it's 10 cents more to do it the right way, and then put the cotter pit in like he said.
Another thing is, I made a bunch of these,
Yeah.
They're well done.
Okay.
But if you got a good plate, like some guys weld a washer on, but take a 1/2-inch nut, a grade 8 nut, drill it so a 1/2-inch bolt goes in. Put a bolt and a nut in both sides, and then weld it. Now you got that much wear.
Okay. Okay. So there you go.
This is just my idea. I don't want to keep fixing the same goddamn thing every year.
Okay.
Fix it, drive it, grease it, and drive it for 5 years, and then.
Okay. So we're still waiting on bearing races and seals on this machine. I think we're missing 3 or something like that. But Dad's working on.
Missing 3 races.
So we're missing 3 races. So Dad's working on this machine here.
We got 5 machines here.
5 machines. Okay. So he's busy right now. And he's still got a garden to put in and whatnot.
See, this is the original hole.
Yeah.
And that's the groove the grease goes on. Well, if you miss that hole a little bit, you're not going to get grease. So I drill through to make sure the grease does get in.
Okay.
And there's your O-ring. You stick it on there if you want an O-ring. But if you notice, you take a flat chunk of material. It was just somebody's idea, eh?
Yeah.
That O-ring that is not doing nothing.
Okay. So keep the questions coming, guys. Dad doesn't mind doing special videos here,
No,
but
I don't mind at all, providing they listen.
okay.
That's where the O-ring goes on.
Yeah.
And then all these should be polished with emery cloth so that this bushing does go on smooth, eh?
Yeah.
The same thing with your axles.
And I think you've probably seen in our couple previous videos on this Bombardier where Dad's hired man was actually using the emery cloth to polish everything. So there you go, guys. It's you can ask questions. Dad'll answer them. You can agree or disagree. It's up to you. Do whatever you want. This is how Dad's doing it. This is how Dad's been doing it for 50 years. But a tube of grease is cheap. I know a bushing and an axle is way more expensive. And it's a question of sometimes just realizing where your grease nipples are and getting in there. But
the average guy doesn't get the grease nipples on this side and this side. They're in between the tires.
yeah.
I don't know how they could miss them, but they might be so excited about the lift or something they forgot the grease.
Yeah. So take a good look around your machine, find out where all the
Here's
grease nipples
another
are.
thing. If this doesn't swivel, that axle is seized in there.
Okay. So there's another one right there.
We just finished fixing this one.
Okay.
You have to pound it off, zip cut it, and then re-weld it so you get a good fit.
Okay.
That's it.
Here's another example of one of the castle nuts right
Yeah,
here.
That's a real castle nut.
Yep.
And this is another. This one
Yeah.
goes on here.
Yeah.
And then these covers, You got to make sure that they're in good shape.
Have you got one here?
This is a good one, eh?
Yeah.
Some of them are wore out.
That one looks a little wore out.
Like, see how thin that one
Yeah.
is? And then some of them wore right out, like that axle there was going to come off.
Yeah.
We showed you on a previous.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, guys, there it is. We got a over 10-minute video on just O-rings and greasing. So let us know if you have anything else.
Slide on both axles, or both bearings to make sure there's no binding, eh?
Yeah.
And then I just put these nuts on for temporary so you don't bugger the thread.
Okay. Okay.
I seen guys knock this off because it was wore out. There was needle bearings in there, first of all, with two half moon or circles, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And the needle bearings run in there, but nobody greased them. So the one guy goes to Shaver, buys this brand new, and instead of emery clothing the axle, he takes a big hammer and drives it on. And I noticed he didn't put any grease in there. Put the wheel on, and he's ready to go.
Okay.
Well, good luck.
So again, tube of grease is $12.
I'm going to show you a good quality grease, too.
Okay. These are getting extra treatment here. Him taking time out of his day to do this. Hey, which one's this one?
This kind of grease is stringy.
Yeah.
That's what you want, because that'll stay in there.
Okay.
And water has a hard time getting by it. You get that grease that looks like Vaseline.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it is.
So what brand is that? Is there a specific brand that you like using, or?
Well, these EP2 Ultra, it's tacky grease.
Klondike EP2.
But you can buy it anywhere.
Okay.
Same quality grease.
Okay, Dad's gonna have a coffee with me, and then we're gonna keep on going here.
Okay, this is a kind of seal that is normally used in a wheel, eh?
Yeah.
And you see how cheaply made that is? This is made by SKF. It's a far superior seal. There's rubber here, where there is no rubber there, plus metal. And
Is there a part number there for the guys?
part number for it is
13839.
Yeah,
And it's SKF. It's a
that's right.
seal.
So if you're going to do this, I mean, if you're going to do wheel bearings yourself, I recommend you use these. Another thing is, without any holes in here, the grease builds up and it'll push your seal out.
Okay.
So try and center there, a 1/8 hole and a 1/8 hole there, no matter which seal you use. And that way, when you get an overload of grease, it has the chance to squeeze out of those holes.
Okay. Well, while we're at this box, what kind of bearing should they be using?
Well,
It's like a Timken bearing,
I
isn't it?
use Timken or NTN. I like good quality bearings.
Okay.
You can buy those ones called Amco. They're made in China.
And they're junk.
They're not like a good quality
Okay.
bearing.
Is there a part number on the bearing?
Well,
That's an old one, though, isn't it?
no, this is brand new.
Is it? Okay.
This is the race, and that's the proper number for the race.
15250X.
And that's for the big axle. This won't fit the 1947 because the axles were smaller.
Okay.
And usually what I do if I'm using Timken, I use Timken bearings and Timken races.
Okay.
Or NTN bearings and races. That's the outer bearings are the same on all of them.
Okay. What's the part number on that one?
This is a NTN number. Can you see it?
There we go. NTN 132 110, Also says 09074 4T 09074.
Okay, that's
NTN.
small, like the outside bearing.
Yep.
That one.
Okay.
And now
Bearings, races, seals.
here's the race.
Okay.
So either NTN bearing and race,
Yeah.
or
Timken bearing.
Timken bearing and race. They're
Okay.
all interchangeable, but I like to stick with matching sets.
Yeah. We got a
You
part.
know, if you pull your caps off, try your tires, see if there's any movement. If there's any movement, take the cotter pin out, adjust the nut, pull it up tight, back it off a quarter of a turn, put the cotter pin in, put the cap on, grease it. You're good for another year.
Okay. Okay. Is there a part number on that?
They can figure it out.
Okay. Well. Okay. So again, got any questions, guys? Just let Dad know.
Here, I got one picture to show you.
Okay.
This is what happens when you run through the water and
Yeah.
and you don't grease and you never adjust.
And you can see just the grooves in there,
See?
guys.
The race is screwed. So then guys wash up the bearing and spin it around. The bearing still turns.
Yeah.
Use that old bearing in a new race. That's a no-no.
Okay.
I just kept these for a sample. You can see the damage in
Yeah. So what's a bearing cost?
Well, right now a set of bearings and races and for a complete Bombardier on the wheels
Yeah.
is $1,200.
So that's
Seals, bearings, and races.
bearings, seals, and races complete on the Bombardier is 1,200. So divide that by 8, right? And that's what your cost. So 150 each. Is that right? Yeah. No, one.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. So that's what you're looking at. But beats being broken down over basic maintenance. So did you figure there was anything else to add on that or no?
Yeah. Like if any of you guys are going to go and buy a used machine, don't look at the paint job. Look at the body and the tracks and the tires and rad, transmission, because that's all the stuff that costs like hell.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these jokers, they must live near a junkyard or something. They strip down an old bus to get a heater, and they'll take wiring off the combine, and when you're all finished, you got nothing.
Okay.